Does anybody want to give a little synopsis of the Noodles and Company case, or would you like me to do it? Since I am the group leader.
I would love for you to do that, Denise.
Oh, thanks. You're so generous to me, Laura. You get to like make sure that I follow all my goals. Keep up with me in this class. Okay. So I think I mentioned to you guys that I've done this case before in B101. So I feel familiar with it, but Aaron Kennedy, the founders of Noodles and Company, he has several options and factors to consider as he plans for the future of his successful fast casual restaurant chain. Noodles is growing quickly, and Aaron would like to ensure that as it grows, there's continually, I don't know what I wrote here, that it continues to grow in the areas of culture, quality, and profitability. So there's competition from other restaurant businesses for the best real estate, employees, and customers. But Noodles wants to stay on top and grow the business and needs to find the best route in which to do that. Would you agree?
Yes. Great.
Sound okay? All right. So Aaron Kennedy. First of all, did any of you look Aaron Kennedy up on the internet?
I did.
Yeah. I didn't actually.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do a little bit of reviewing. What is the fast casual segment?
So it's like a hybrid between fast. Sorry, go ahead, John. No, you go.
You're on it.
It's like a hybrid between fast food and like casual dining.
Right. So Laura, do you have a Noodles there in Nevada?
No, I
no
don't.
Noodles, no Chick-fil-A. Where do you eat?
You know what, though? I just learned that they're building a Chick-fil-A in Reno, which is about a half hour from where I am. It'll be open this summer.
Excellent.
So, forward to trying it.
Oh, it's delish. John, you have Chick-fil-A, right?
Nope. Yeah, no Chick-fil-A.
How about Noodles?
No Noodles.
Wow.
Yeah. We got a Panda Express.
Hey, that's good.
I think that's probably the closest thing.
You know what's kind of hilarious? And they're talking in the case study about how they're trying to provide, he feels like it's really important to provide this healthful food option. If you go to Noodles and Company, the macaroni and cheese has like 50 grams of fat in it.
I was looking at the menu wondering how healthful it actually was. Yeah.
Right? And not that healthful. So yeah, you're right. Laura, restaurants that offer higher quality and creative food sold at moderate prices with counter rather than table service. So what is the challenge facing Noodles and Company in this segment? It's kind of a new segment, but what do you guys think? Specifically.
It seems like it's a pretty popular segment right now. You know, I think it's a huge market, and so you have big dogs. Like in the case, you heard about like McDonald's, like they have, you know, their hands in it as well. And you know, I think you have some big competition that you're going up against.
But I feel like when the case was written, there wasn't that big a competition.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. But I think, so what's the challenge facing Noodles and Company within this segment?
It looked like the competition was just starting to grow. Yeah. So I think John, you're probably right, is, you know, that it was at the time it wasn't huge, but competition was starting. And so rather than, you know, rolling out their expansion plan like they had planned it, they are now facing, what do we do? Do we need to grow faster than we had planned? Because yes, there is competition starting to come.
Right.
Yeah.
So I love how they call the competition copycats, right?
Yeah.
When he got the idea from a noodle restaurant.
Right.
That's so true.
I was like, who's the copycat here, Aaron? So the hint on our paper is overcrowding and rapidly increasing population interest. So it's at 8.3% per year in the past, annual sales of around $350 billion, with a projected growth of 15 to 20% in the future and an increase of $5 billion per year. And I don't know why neither of you did not have those numbers off the top of your head.
Sorry. I'm slacking.
You need better research.
All right. So what do you feel like is the most specific challenge that's facing Noodles right now?
Growth, like how they address that growth.
And
you know, I think human resource issues, employees and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, that's a big one.
And I think as part of that, keeping their culture as they do that.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like a big focus of the case is that part.
So last time I read this case, we just had to determine, whether or not they should franchise or not, which I feel like was pretty easy way to look at it. But trying to write a case study, just reading the case and determining what all the problems are, what all the issues are, it's kind of a whole different bag of worms. But they wrote on this paper, just like you said, meeting the unanticipated growth, external threats like competition, but they also wrote internal turmoil. And I didn't really get that from the case study. Did you get internal turmoil?
I didn't. No.
I wonder if that's playing off of just the idea of trying to keep the culture like intact,
Yeah.
I wonder if that's kind of an internal thing because you're, the types of employees that you're bringing on and managers, I think maybe that's what they're talking about. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. When I think of turmoil, I think of conflict. So I was like, that doesn't resonate with me, but maybe it was just me. I didn't think there was a lot of. Okay, so how do you feel about Aaron Kennedy working full-time as an employee of somebody else while developing this business?
It's a good way to get the business started when you're able to fund it.
John, is that what you're doing right now?
Actually, I have part ownership. Well, I'm getting part ownership in this company, so
Nice.
towards that. Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Making the switcheroo. Your own IPO.
Yeah, we're actually in this. It's so funny. A lot of these cases and stuff just directly tie to things that we're going through as a company. We just had another partner join up with us, and he's the director of sales. So I'm director of marketing. And then the owner-founder is actually a cousin of mine. He is the director of development. So we have the three sections of the company. We just got some financing, from another outside source that we're right at this stage where we're deciding, how are we going to roll out? How are we hiring people? I actually interviewed two people this morning, already. And so it's just, it's kind of cool how these cases kind of resonate with what we're going through.
That's great. That's awesome.
You got Mikey, Carlos, and Nick on your team already, huh?
That's right. You.
Or you're the Martin.
Well, yeah.
So it can be a good thing to work, but is it fair to your employer to do that?
I think he made it pretty clear, right? He made it clear that he would be working with that intent. And so I think they knew that when he came on. I think that's, as long as you're upfront about it, like if I was interviewing somebody for a position and they were really qualified and we kind of needed somebody right with his expertise right now, I think that would be totally cool.
That wouldn't be a turnoff to you at all if they said, hey, I can do this for a few years, but...
Optimally, I'd find somebody that could stick with us forever. But I mean, if we couldn't find someone and he was really well, it's a stepping stone to kind of visit. That's kind of the problem. And the nice thing for him is they didn't have to pay him a whole lot because of that agreement.
No, he was making like $25,000 a year, huh?
Yeah, but you got all this experience right off the bat. I mean, he came from some pretty extensive experience in past projects. So to use that to build your company in the beginning, I think would be really good.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking that it was, I think they were probably so excited to get him. We've had some cases about, superstars and that, I think that's probably what he was. You look at the, the successes that he'd had in his past. I think they were probably excited to get him for as long as they could have him.
Yeah.
I wonder if they hired him with the idea that he would be more of like a consultant, working for them, but it would be temporary. Because that's pretty common is you have a consultant come in who's got an expert in that field and he's got a project, he's got to develop your sales funnel or whatever, and then he's done, So I wonder if that's kind of how they looked at him in the beginning.
Right. So I think he's in a super scary spot. Like he's about to be a new dad. He's developing this business. He's maxed out all of his credit cards. I am not like that kind of risk taker.
I'm not at all.
John is.
Yes, entrepreneur at heart.
He's putting his money where his mouth is. So I have started my own business, but with I use $200 to start it and just see how fast it could go. That was about as risky as I got. And it was successful, for what it was, but I can't start a Noodles and company for that much.
Not quite.
Especially
So
when, I mean, and it never fails that like you start the company and it's like super rocky in the beginning, just like this case study. And you get to that point where you're like, it's a make or break opportunity. You're like, well, do we continue? I think his words, do we continue the face plant, that we seem like we're going on, or do we sit down and figure it out and figure out how it works? I think that's what separates like the successful entrepreneur from those that, are posers, I guess, or people that are going to go back to a full-time position.
posers, rude.
But it's not easy. And I think it's funny. I interviewed a guy today that he started his own company after working, like he's a developer for Coachella. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that company. But it's up here in Sandpoint. Anyway, so he stopped working for them about a year ago, and he started his own company with the idea of, man, this will be awesome. I'll be in charge. I'll be able to do whatever I want. And, and it just was way harder than he thought it was. And so, he said, well, that's the whole reason why I'm interviewing with you today, is because I'd like to get back into a more, a safer position where I'm not having to stress about all that on a daily basis. So, I mean, it's a different personality type.
Yes. The risk averse versus the risky, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still, I mean, at what point do you say time to jump ship? Or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you have like any ideas?
When to pull the plug?
Yeah.
We actually, because I've been a part of 3 startups now. So the first one was really successful. Actually, Rich and I started that one as well together. He developed it, and I came on after it was already kind of running. But that one, we actually were in the Inc. 5000. We were number 1,400. Yeah, at ClickShop. So we grew it it did about 8 million in revenue a year, and then we ended up selling it because we had this other idea, and so we started another company called Rockwell Arms, and that one we grew it within 3 years to a $4 million revenue a year company as well.
Wow.
But then, and I don't know if you guys remember Sandy, I'm sure you remember.
Oh yes.
And it crippled us, and we actually went bankrupt as a company for that one. And so I went.
What
that
kind
was
of
the
business
transition.
was it?
What's that?
What kind of business was it?
Rockwell Arms was the name of the company. So we sold firearms, and Rockwell came from Porter Rockwell. So
That was cool.
That's awesome.
yeah, a couple of these
Totally
guys.
my ancestor by the way.
There you go. But so I think your question of when do you pull the plug? Well, Rich actually, because he was part owner in the beginning too. He actually sold his ownership. Probably after year 3. I mean, once he started seeing the decline, whereas Doug, his brother, and I continued running the company. And I mean, I stayed with Doug throughout till the very end, till it was over and we had to pull the plug. But it was, I mean, I think we should have pulled the plug with Rich. I mean, it really. I mean, and I guess you kind of looking back at it, and it's like hindsight's 20/20, but yeah.
Yes, but look at all the valuable experience you gained through it.
Oh yeah, it's so valuable. And so that actually, so the bankruptcy of Rockwell Arms led me to go back and finish my degree, because I started it down in Rexburg, and that's where I met my wife. And after 2 years of school, I decided, hey, I'm going to go start my own company. So I left and didn't finish my degree. And so this gives me an opportunity to finish my degree. And then Rich came to me about 8 months ago or so, and he's like, hey, I've got this other opportunity I'm doing. What do you think about joining up? And so yeah, it's just crazy how the Lord has kind of provided opportunities for us, and like one thing has led to another. But yeah, so the question, I guess, kind of sorry, that was a long story, but
No,
I think
you're a young pup. You've got lots of time to make lots of choices.
I mean, I think it's different, and how committed are you to the project? And yeah, it's kind of it's a hard question.
So this is jumping ahead a little bit, but Laura, did you look up Aaron Kennedy at all?
No, I didn't.
So he sold the company like before it went public, before like, what was it, like 2003? He sold it when it was going gangbusters. So I was like, oh, it was his baby. Like he worked so hard on it. I wonder, and I couldn't find anything on it. Like what made him just be like all of a sudden, and I'm done. You know?
Yeah. Interesting.
You got to get out while the getting's good, or what? Because it has like after its IPO, it increased exponentially.
Yeah.
So now he's like a professor of finance or something at the University of Colorado.
Oh, interesting.
It went public in 2013, and so it doubled its value to like $600 million, I think.
Wow.
Like if you look up franchise opportunities, the entire heartland is taken. It's like only fringe states that don't have them. Nevada is open if you'd like to own your own noodles in Nevada.
Okay.
I wonder if I bet
That was
Idaho
really
is available.
interesting. So if I was Aaron, I would have given up sooner, probably. Okay, but that's
Yeah.
just
I would have too. I wouldn't have taken the risk to begin with, though. That's just me and risk.
right. Well, his pregnant wife was probably the one that was supporting him.
Yeah,
She did. That's true. She did have a good job. That's why they moved to Boulder, right?
that's true.
Yeah.
She did. And that's the other thing that plays into a lot of these, you know, and is the spouse and how supportive they are. That's my wife has been so supportive, you know. So it's cool to. I mean, that's a key factor in whether you're gonna throw in the towel or keep going is how supportive your spouse is probably.
Well, I don't know if my husband would say I'm so supportive.
Hopefully it pays off, you know. That's like
in the middle of law school, he said, "I think I'd rather be a football coach," and I said, "I think you're gonna finish law school."
No kidding.
that's how supportive I am. That's all.
Hey, he was halfway through. We were not quitting then. So
Yeah.
No quitting now.
no. So on a different vein, can Noodles and Company, going back to the 2000, whatever when this case is set, can they maintain their corporate culture through aggressive growth? And why or why not?
I think they can through franchising if they put certain measures in place. Like they'll definitely need somebody over franchising just to oversee those efforts to make sure they're like really, really selective about who they choose as franchisees, you know, and put them through the same kind of process that they put their general managers through, like with the personality tests and everything, and make sure that they have a great fit. And then they need somebody else to monitor afterwards to make sure that they're complying with that, you know, and just keep a really, really close eye on it. And I don't think they need to grow really, really fast. I think maybe faster than their original plan. I think if they do try to grow too fast, then they will lose what's important to them. But I think it's possible, like I say, with the right measures in place.
Agreed.
I agree.
So I feel like some franchises have a more similar feel than others. Would you say that? Like, I know this is okay. So Panda Express, right? Every time I go into a Panda Express, it has the same feel. But when I go into McDonald's, they feel like different restaurants a lot of the time. You know what I mean?
Like you mean like atmosphere and decoration
Do you think that they have just different training? Is it just a different culture? Like how close do you want your franchise to be? Like, is everything exactly the same? Because if you go into any Chick-fil-A around the country and you say thank you, they will say it's my pleasure. Like they're trained to say it's my pleasure. And I like love the continuity. But so how close do you want to be, like Chick-fil-A, or do you want to be like McDonald's?
Depends on the company too. I think the franchise, you know, so McDonald's, I mean, their target market is a lot different than the target market for Chick-fil-A, right? I think McDonald's is after, I mean, they want as big a market as they can, but their focus is those that are more price conscious and they're wanting it quick and, you know, all that stuff. Whereas Chick-fil-A, you know, I think they're price conscious as well, but it's a little bit more like customer service. You're going to pay a little more maybe for us, but it's going to be fresh. It's going to be a good experience. And so I think that type of a franchise needs to be really strict on their policies. Whereas McDonald's, you can have a little bit more flexibility. I mean, you still want to have good managers and whatnot in place, but when people are like price conscious, that's not as big a deal to them.
So the Noodles should be ultra conscious, right?
Yeah, it should be even more so than Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
So when you walk out of there, or should I say roll out of there with 50 extra fat grams, you want to have had a good experience. All right. Did you guys really understand the concepts? Because I will admit, I am not totally 100% on the difference between first to market and best to market. Like, are they just as they seem, like just the first ones to do something or the best ones to do something? Is it different than that?
That's it.
Have you learned about first mover advantages?
No.
Okay, so first mover advantages have all sorts of things, like if they're the first to market, they have the best option at real estate, finding the best locations and finding the best employees and finding everything and getting the customers there. Once, if they get in first and they establish this great customer base, it's going to be harder for new competitors coming in to pull those customers away if they're really loyal to the first one there. So that's first mover, that's first to market. Best to market may be if they come in later. As of right now, they were kind of first and best, in the markets that they were in. Best means they do things so much better. And if they have that best, then maybe they can pull some things away from the first, but it's kind of the trade-off. Sometimes you have to choose one or the other, because the other one might sacrifice the other.
I think a good example of that would be like McDonald's versus maybe Chick-fil-A, right? So McDonald's is everywhere. I mean, they're real estate, they've got everything. And so they were the first, and they're like the biggest, in the market, but they're also not known as the best tasting, like the best performing. And so, yeah. So I think that's maybe an idea. A comparison is McDonald's and Chick-fil-A or somebody like that.
Yeah. So if you had to choose one option for Noodles to go towards, would it be first to market or best to market?
I think for them it'd be best.
I agree.
Just because like their target market is that, 2 income, higher, they've got less disposable or less time, but they have more income. And so I think you're marketing to those that are a little bit more picky, about where they're going to spend their money, but they're willing to spend more money there as well.
Okay.
And so I think the idea, so that the one store that they opened inside of that old building or whatever, and then all the other, their neighbors or whatever left, and it was a smoke shop that came in. I mean, that's kind of the idea, is like it was still able to be successful because of their target market, because they advertised themselves in the right way. So even though they weren't in like the most opportune spot or whatever, they still were successful because of their business model and their focus.
So is part of being best to market getting, like, poaching the best employees from the first to market restaurant?
That could be.
Maybe.
And how do you go about that? Because, I mean, it was interesting what they described in the case study. They're like, oh, we just go on the street and we say, hey, we're opening a new restaurant. Yeah. You want an interview? And I'm like, that would not yield great results here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, I will say.
Well, I think
that's actually something we just did. Oh, go ahead, Laura.
No, you go. You go.
That's actually something we just did as a company. So I was telling you about the partner that we just got on. He was the director of sales for probably, I don't know, one of the top competitors for us in our market. Like our focus market is the dental community. And so the company he worked for was Business Promotion, and they also focused on the dental community. But this year they're on track to be like a $20 million company. And so he brought them from a $300,000 company. Within 5 years, they grew it to a $20 million company, and he's developed all these sales funnels and stuff. So we're paying a good amount of money to get him on board with us, but we poached him. And so, that expertise and stuff is going to be really valuable to us, especially because we have this nucleus of a company ready to blow up.
Y'all should be on Shark Tank.
That's right. We don't want to give up any more ownership in the company, though.
No. And it's not worth their time, anything under 10.
Probably won't be worth their time.
I'm sure Laura does not know what I'm talking about, as she does not partake.
I've heard of Shark Tank. I have heard of it. I do know what you're talking about.
Laura has better things to do than watch Shark Tank. Not me, though. So, okay. Let's see. Thank you for explaining that to me, that first market, best market. I was like, don't you want to be both? Why do you have to choose? So that was really good examples. Okay, what was the result of their early openings, the first couple of stores? One in Colorado, one in Wisconsin. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, not so good.
So the first ones, I mean, I think they struggled with like concept and their processes. They didn't have everything in place, but the biggest thing that hurt them was the negative reviews. Like food just wasn't good, and because of that, like it just kind of spread like wildfire that, hey, these guys have a great idea, but the food sucks, and so that's what really hurt them in the beginning.
So if I'm a competitor and I see that, I'm like, ooh, that's a great idea. I'm gonna start a business where the food's good.
Yeah, you think that would have been it. I wonder have you guys ever heard of, Noodles Express? Isn't that another one that's similar?
I've heard of that.
I wonder if they're like a direct competitor or not. Anyways, I just wonder, you'd think that other other companies would have popped up, you know, and as a result of that.
There might have been those copycats. So they had poor processes and substandard food and a disconnect with customers, according to this. So how did they change things? How did they right their wrongs?
They came up with new recipes. They re-engineered the food that they served.
So right on that note, the first recipes were made of in his mother-in-law's kitchen, like by him.
No wonder they were good.
And second of all, where do I get wealthy friends that give me hundreds of thousands of dollars? Because he was like not bankrolled by an institution. It was like just he had wealthy investor friends.
He was a good fundraiser.
He was a good friend to have. I'd be starting a GoFundMe. Help Denise with her dream of owning a restaurant. People would be like,
Noodles Express.
So, all right. Then they started to build momentum, and they really turned a corner when?
Was it their fourth store, I think? Like when the third store, I think, is when they started seeing a little bit of profit, but they had processes in place, and I think like they dialed in a good recipe, and they started getting really good reviews. They opened up. It was like in a trendier spot, right? And it was bringing in like $4,000 to $5,000 a day in revenue. So I think that's like the turning spot. They're like, hey, we're onto something, and then they just continue to grow that at that point.
You know what I thought was a brilliant idea is when they went into the schools and offered an incentive. So the only time I go to like, I don't know, Texas Roadhouse is when my kids earn a free kids meal for something that they did, and then we're all rolling into Texas Roadhouse to redeem it. But then that's a great way to build visibility in the community.
Awareness. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the mantra, every guest, every bowl, every time?
It's good. I think it puts the culture in focus. I mean, I think that they, you know, to have that clear focus as you're continuing to grow is really important. I think that's something that they're struggling with throughout the case. But yeah, that's a good starting point. You have that focus.
Right. It establishes clear performance expectations, provides the lens through which culture is developed, maintained, and implemented, the sharing of the store and company performance goals and results as compared to that goal, corporate responsibility. I'm guessing that's what you meant by that.
Yes. Amen.
So you know what I did? I accidentally printed my darn case study. I print it every time. I'm not a good steward of the earth, but
I do too.
I can't stand like e-readers. I can't make notes. Anyways, I accidentally printed out the whole thing in color. And I was like, no! Now I have like a color menu. I'm like, I don't need this. But anyway, as I was looking through their corporate, I don't know, goals, whatever, what's it called? Their mantra kind of stuff.
Vision.
Yeah, their vision
statement and stuff.
I was like, this is weird. Did you think it was like?
Well, yeah, all the weird, like the random words, like they
random words, yes.
Yeah, like how I kind of kept wondering, how are these supposed to specifically apply?
This is approximately $75 worth of color ink. It's cheaper to buy a new printer. The 5 fundamentals in air quotes. I was like, this looks like my kid's spelling list. Like somebody just went through the thesaurus. I thought it was super weird. Passion is one of their culture values. I don't want anybody having any passion anywhere near my noodles.
It's funny that you say that. We did an interview with this girl the other day, this lady the other day, and that was like, so when Rich and I were talking about her afterwards, we were like, man, she was a great candidate. Like she had some good experience and stuff, but she lacked passion.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and so for us, like to have passion for like what you do, and I think maybe that's kind of what they're talking about, is that they're passionate people. They care about what they're doing.
Well, I think
know
it's a-
I'm not trying to get down in the trenches here, but I was just like spirited, positive, determined.
Spirited.
I was like, those are all better things than passion is the word that they chose. Yeah, passion for your noodles.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I totally agree. Like, and the
well, but did you ever read the book? Let's see, one of my classes I had to read. It was Good to Great, I think is what it was called. Okay, there is a huge like chapter, I think, on that very thing about how passion is important, and that's what makes it. You know, if you are not passionate about what you're doing, whether that's making noodles or, you know, starting up this huge company, you have to be passionate about what you're doing or it just won't be successful.
It's true, but don't you feel like some people may have like that determination, but it just doesn't come across as the exuberance that one would call passion? I don't know.
I think everybody maybe displays passion differently.
The English language is so funny.
Yeah.
There's probably a better word in Spanish or something for it, but that's why in English we need like passion, and then you need like 10 other words to help you know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's also determined and enthusiastic.
Right.
Oh, that's what you mean by passion.
So let me tell you guys. You guys know that I live in the land of the dull and dreary, but so my husband started out as an ERISA attorney for this big company here in Cedar Rapids. And so ERISA is the most boring kind of tax law in the world, but he's a guy that can like put his nose to the grindstone and get through something. In the 3 years that we have lived here, he's been promoted twice. He is now the chief human resource officer, and I am convinced it is only because he is the only person that displays any sort of passion about the company.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's so fascinating. You get into his office and it's like a bunch of robots, and you're like, what is going on here? You know, because normally the law and human resources, they're not good friends, but they like want somebody that can like put a good face to the company.
What company does he work for? So it's a big law firm?
No, it's Transamerica. It's insurance.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, very interesting here. Okay, that's the last mean thing I'll say about Iowa. So, alrighty, let's see. So the current team model is standardization, team-based performance goals, rewards, hiring and firing, and team decision. So I thought it was super interesting what Brother Pulley said in his description about how much better rewards work than discipline. Do you feel the same way?
Mm-hmm. It does, yeah.
You see it with your kids all the time too. You know, they respond better to rewards than to punishment.
Mm-hmm.
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. I feel like BYU Idaho needs to update their case studies. Because now I'm supposed to ask you how Noodles plans to expand and where. But now we all know.
Yeah, franchising and
everywhere. They're planning to kill the Midwest with their noodles.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually to Europe. What do you think about the Europe market?
That was interesting. I don't know. I guess maybe because he worked there, like in Paris, so he just has a connection there. He wants to grow into Europe. I don't know.
I would think it would be super hard to make something standard in another country.
I agree. I felt like they said that the reason that they thought they could do it was because, you know, noodles are a universal food. You know, everybody eats noodles in different varieties. But I feel, and I could be completely wrong with this, my international travel experience is not very much. So, but I feel like in America, we are kind of open to trying lots of different ethnic foods. And I don't know that they would find that in a lot of other places. Possibly in some places of Europe, but I don't know. I just think that it would be a lot more difficult for them internationally, even if they do have their international, you know, twists on noodles.
Did they ever bring it international? I didn't see that in my research.
I don't think they have yet. I looked. I don't think they have yet.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I don't know how well it would translate. I often think, like, I can't make Mexican food 2 nights in a row for my family, or they're like, oh, Mexican food again. And I think, do the little Mexican children feel this way? No, they just eat their rice and beans. So I don't know how that would go over in other countries. We need a lot of variety here.
Yeah.
It looks like they expanded into Canada in 2015. But yeah, I don't see anything about Europe. Interesting. Huh.
Right. Well, once Aaron Kennedy jumped ship, I guess they maybe took a different approach.
That's true.
And in fact, their long-standing CEO just left too. They only have an interim CEO right now. So.
Oh, interesting.
All right. How do they plan on penetrating their niche?
What?
All of these words are making me very uncomfortable. Yeah, let me just say, they want to have a presence in each segment in the industry. But what challenges do they face? I think we've already talked about this. They make me say the same questions over and over.
I know that's the problem with some of those, the outline that it gives you.
Right. Yeah. What challenges do they face? Franchising, maintaining consistent culture.
Yeah, everything we just talked about.
Competitors, first to market, best to market. I'm like, hey, that was like 4 paragraphs up. All right, guys. What are possible strategies for growth? Franchising is one, but what else could they do if they decided not to franchise?
Joint venture was one of their options.
Just take on a partner?
Yeah, strategic partners, so somebody who owns part of the company, or just grow it on their own, just get financing, get loans and whatnot, or seek maybe other investments.
Don't you think
sorry, go ahead.
Nope.
I was just thinking another one of their options that they listed was licensing, like licensing their brand out into, they mentioned specifically Starbucks and like airports and bookstores and things. I think that was probably the least likely or the least viable option, but it was one that they considered.
Mm-hmm.
I can see going to the grocery store and people wanting a cup of coffee to shop with, but I can't see going to the grocery store and grabbing your noodles and going down the aisle.
Yeah.
Although I will say there is like kind of like a buffet at our grocery store, and I know this sounds super hickish, but it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, my husband called me before we moved here, like when he had already started his job, and he's like, I'm eating dinner at the grocery store. What? So, how can organizational culture make or break a strategy in any company?
Well, I think that's one thing that we're struggling with right now is, because if you don't get the right people on board and you lose that, I think it could spiral pretty quickly, and then it's hard to repair that. I think once the damage has been done to the culture and to like just the people's vision of you as a company, it's really hard to repair that. So that's one thing that we're struggling with, as we're looking for new employees and finding talent and whatnot, is trying to find somebody who's going to actually fit that really well.
So true. Can one bad apple like totally blow up the plan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's actually one thing with Rockwell when we went down. We had an employee that was awesome. Like, it was the gun industry. Like, there's some really interesting people in the gun industry, and so like we were all business minded. That when we started it, like I had experience with guns. I grew up, I was a hunter, and I liked guns, but I wasn't like ultra passionate about it. We just saw a really good opportunity, and so we started it. So when we hired the first person on, we're like, hey, we need somebody who's like totally dialed into the target market and understands everything. And
passionate about guns.
Yeah, passionate. Yeah, he's passionate about it. And so we found this guy, and he was awesome. He fit all the criteria, except he was pretty abrasive. Like, we're like, oh, but he's a gun guy. Maybe that's okay. And so, we hired him on, and for the most part, he did really well. But there was certain people that he just didn't jive well with, and it kind of became a bigger and bigger thing, because he was more abrasive, and it really did. I think it damaged, especially our the local business. It kind of put a negative spin on it, and like people saw us as like, oh, you have that guy that's kind of the negative gun guy. So Yeah, so I mean, it really is, it really is an important thing to consider moving forward. So that's a lesson we learned.
Right. But how do you know, like sometimes you don't know when you hire somebody, like in the case study that we did with, what's his face? He was the big star and then they put him into the.
Was that Thomas? No, that wasn't Thomas.
Last week's.
Was it last week? You know what I'm talking about though.
Yeah,
they promoted him up,
Yeah.
So he was great at what he was doing, but then he kind of stunk. So like, how do you really figure that out?
I mean, I think because when you interview somebody, you can kind of get a pretty good feel for it, especially if you do a couple interviews and stuff. So we start with like a phone interview just to see how they do over the phone. Then we do a face-to-face. And then if we still like them at that point, then we send them like an email where they need to go and take some tests and stuff just to see if they're qualified, like if they have the experience for it. And then after that, there will be a final interview that you meet them and you're like, all right, well, so during that process, I think you kind of see some things. And I think so in the very beginning, identifying what type of an employee you want, what does it jive with your culture or not, and then sticking with that. I think that's one thing we should have done with Rockwell is we should have, kept looking for the right guy that was passionate about guns, but he wasn't abrasive at all, and so I think we were too quick to be like, hey, we need somebody now, to where we compromised on our culture a little bit just to bring him on with the idea that he'd be okay, but it really wasn't. So I think you really, especially in this case, like with Noodles, having their culture is so important, they really need to, find the right people. They can't compromise on that at all.
It said in the case study that Aaron Kennedy disregarded the psychological tests at first, but that he learned quickly not to do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, what kind of psychological test? What would it say about me?
It's psychotic. No.
More psycho, less logical. But has great passion.
Very passionate.
All right. So, so what gospel principles apply to this situation?
Oh.
This is tougher. We want to spread the gospel, right? So we want our missionaries to kind of have a standard that they uphold and say similar things. You don't want them preaching their own stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. Think of in the Philippines, that's where I served my mission. As the church was growing there, there was a lot of direction and stuff and training that was going into the war. They don't have the the foundation that we have here in the States, and so it's really important to start there and then develop that up. So yeah, keeping the same culture. Filipinos, and I think a lot of other countries, but the family stuff is really it's very Catholicism. Catholic.
Oh yeah.
And so a lot of times they'll come to church and they'll have a cross around their neck, and you go to their house and they've got Mother Mary and stuff. And so trying to get everybody on the same page as far as culture is really important. So yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, that is not just in foreign countries. Oh my goodness.
You have it there, and you.
That is everywhere. Wow. Just cultural differences, and you don't go through the discussions or preach my gospel and say, and hey, you need to take off your cross. And did you know, by the way, that the cross is not necessarily banned in the church? It's just there was somebody got offended by something one time, so they took off their cross and it became a cultural thing. And it didn't start out like the prophet came out and said, everybody take off your crosses. So anyways.
Right. Take out that second earring.
But when you go into our chapels, they generally look the same and have the same feel, and I think that's kind of across the board with restaurants. They're all trying to generate a similarity. I don't know, sometimes gospel principles are hard to apply.
That was good though. I liked it. Good job.
All right, so are there any connections between this week's readings and this case?
Yeah.
Probably getting the right people on board from the beginning. I think in the reading, we have a lot of the people who were brought on probably just because they're experts in the field, but they really didn't have a focus on what they wanted the team to be. And so I think that's what Catherine, is that what her name is? Catherine, yeah. What she's struggling with now is she's trying to create a culture, and like everybody has to conform to that. And so you have people that just don't, because they weren't brought on with that idea in mind.
Right. I like it. I like this story. I haven't read ahead like John, but I'm like,
This is my second. I'm almost done with it for the second time.
what? You overachiever.
Well, I listened to it. On Audible on my way to work. So.
Oh, BTW. If you want to use your tender mercy, you have to let Brother Pulley know in advance.
Did you not?
No, I did. He will.
Oh, okay.
John just said, "Will he take like your lowest score off?" And I checked, and it said no.
Yeah, I was going to email him. So I was going to email him to see if we don't use that tender mercy. So you asked him, Denise?
It says it right in the instructions.
Well, but that was if you're going to use a tender mercy, but he might be willing to. I don't know. It's worth asking.
Yeah, he's like, if that's the case, then I'm going to be gone the next week.
I'm going to be gone next week.
Next week we don't have one. Next week there's no meeting. It's like a different case study next week.
It is.
And then the following week, I think I'm going to be using mine because it's another 31-page case study. There's only 2 left.
Tender mercies. Is it just me or talking to myself on the recording?
Well, I'll still come. I'll read it and I'll still come because. So how did that work? Did you, on your self-evaluation thing, did you?
You just evaluate yourself as awesome. He said too.
I'm awesome.
And last week I accidentally evaluated myself low, and I saw it afterwards. I was like,
"Oh no!"
So I emailed him, and I was like,
"I meant to put John low."
I meant to click. I'm awesome. I'm sorry. So, what do you think Noodles should do? What would you do if you were Aaron Kennedy? How would you grow your business? Would you franchise it? Would you just keep on keeping on?
I like the franchising idea. I think that's cool. See, Mike, the nice thing about franchises is you grow and other people kind of have to worry about a lot of it, so you get the foundation in place and you make sure that the structure's there and the culture's there and a way to maintain that culture's there. But then at that point, it's like almost, on auto drive at that point. So
well, and
you just take your percentage and you're good. Oh,
and they get to keep the control too, though. They get to say, we get to choose, no, we don't want to. With a partnership, you have to come to an agreement on everything. With a franchise, you get to lay it all out the way you want, and they can choose to accept or not accept, if they don't
and
accept. And
you still make money.
Yeah.
And you can grow bigger and faster.
Yeah. And they bring the money for the startup too. Yeah, they bring the money for the startup too. So
yes. I thought it was a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could have found my paper on it from B101, I would have used it. I'm pretty sure those were my conclusions then too. So.
Well, good.
So, strategic partner, going public, self-finance growth. I think we've talked about all those options and why we would choose franchising. I just would like to thank everyone for your time and participation. I feel like a lot of passion has been brought into this, and we've really penetrated the material.
That niche has been covered.
Yep, sounds good. Okay. Any other thoughts on Noodles or anything that struck you funny? What did you put as your issues that he needed to deal with? I put fast growth across America, company culture, talent acquisition and retention, barriers to growth, and option to franchise.
I like it. I didn't pick any yet. I've done the research. I like listening to you guys because then I just go use your ideas.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I had first or best. Which one should they put the emphasis on? First to market or best to market? The vehicle for expansion. Which one are they going to choose to do that? Capital, the right employees, location, the distance from headquarters to expanding out, competition, and copycats.
So did you feel like the distance from headquarters was even an issue? Their first two were in Wisconsin and Colorado, so it's not like...
Yeah.
But I feel like that was part of their problem at the beginning. Yeah. That they couldn't maintain the immediate control that they needed to with them being so far away. As they get established, which, they are now, as they get more and more established and they're able to successfully instill this culture in their franchises, that will be less of an issue. But at the time, it was an issue at the time of the case, I guess.
But it feels like a non-issue when you have 60 restaurants. Like,
once you get bigger, like, yeah, I think Laura's saying that too.
Yeah. So anyways, I was just like, there's some inconsistencies here. He's the copycat, and let's go.
So next week, no meeting.
Next week, no meeting. Happy spring break.
So the week after, I'll be the leader then, right?
Okay.
Is that what we want?
Mm-hmm.
I will switch this to next week then.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, happy reading about Patagonia.
Right.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, thanks.
All right.
That was
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Later.